back with Dr. Sean Riley from Tulsa Spine and Rehab. Dr. Riley, I would imagine you see lots of cases there at Tulsa Spine and Rehab, and there are lots of causes for the injuries that you see, but I bet you lifting is a common one, isn't it?
One of the top causes, Scott. We see it almost daily in the clinic here. Primarily, it's going to be some form of low back pain. Typically, it's something just minor, but I've seen some pretty nasty disc cases and some other cases that have really, there's been some significant injury from lifting. So, I always spend a few minutes talking with my patients, even the healthy ones, about, things that they can do to lift things safely, tips to prevent some back injuries. And the first thing that I always talk to patients about, Scott, is, let's figure out what you're lifting. Have you checked the object before you have lifted it? And it's a good idea to test every load before you get down and lift it. And I recommend to folks maybe get your foot down there and kind of push it around to determine what the weight is or what you're dealing with. Because a lot of times, just because the box is small, as or, a structure might be small, it could be quite heavy. And I think that's one of the top ways a lot of us injure ourselves by lifting is we just assume since the box is small, the load is going to be fairly light, and actually it could be quite the opposite. The second thing is, if we're lifting a box, has it been packed correctly? Is the weight balanced inside so it won't move around? Are there loose pieces within the box that could potentially cause injury or so forth? And then next, is it how can you grip it? Is it somewhat easy to grip that? A lot of times I'll talk to patients about ergonomics, and I'm sure you've been aware of this, that sometimes it's impossible to, maintain a good position while lifting something. And so if you're able to, have somewhat of a tight grip on the object before you lift it. If there are handles, you always make sure you want to use those handles as well.
So the conventional wisdom, at least as I understand it, is you try to lift with your knees, not your back. Is that right?
Actually, yeah, and we'll get into some of that. That's so very important that we use the large muscles and we keep a neutral spine in our low back and use the legs and the glute muscles to bring it straight up. Some other things that I like to talk to folks about is, what's the best way to pick it up? And we always talk about using slow and smooth movements. Do not hurry or jerk. Those are typically things that are going to result in some kind of injury. I always talk to patients about keeping your body facing the object. Do not, under no circumstances, twist and bend. It's a recipe for a disc herniation or potentially a bulge. So make sure you're facing the object and you lift. And then, like you said, we are always lifting with your legs. You want to try to get that load as close as you can. If you potentially could, straddle the object always. Get it underneath you and lift straight up. And lifting with your legs, bending at your knees, not at your back. Those are all types of things that we want to, focus on. And, try to, if you're going to have to carry something, Scott, we want to focus on carrying that load like right in front of us. Try to keep it between your belt and your shoulders, right at your chest. And if you're able to, try to keep that close to you, close to your chest. And also, we want to figure out how we can avoid the back injuries. Okay. Most importantly, Scott, we need to warm up. Stretch your legs and your back before lifting anything. Just like if you were going to go to the gym or exercise, it's important if you're going to have to lift something, try to warm up a little bit. Very important too. A lot of us guys have problems with this pacing ourselves. Take some small breaks between lifts. If you're going to be lifting quite a few different things, try to, slow down, take your time. We all have a difficult time with doing that. And then obviously don't overdo it. We've all been in situations where there's been that object that we really need, we need to move it. And we end up overdoing it, and we have the tendency to hurt ourselves. So I think it's important that we just try not to overdo it. Make sure you have enough room around you, so you can lift it safely, so your space is set up good for you. Obviously, avoid walking on slippery surfaces. We want to make sure you check your flooring. And a lot of you guys, and a lot of folks that might rely on like a back support brace, that's not an excuse to lift something very heavy. A lot of times I'll see patients that just that brace is an excuse and they rely on it so heavily to protect them. And, I've read some studies that, these back braces haven't been proven to protect your low back from injury. I'm not saying they don't work. They do provide some support. So just don't let that be a false sense of security. And then I would say, lastly, get some help. Call your pal. I used to joke with friends saying, once I'm out of college, no one can ask me to help them move anymore. So, but it's important that we get with someone if we have the capacity to have a buddy over, someone to help us out, get some help.
If you do hurt yourself, is it necessarily going to be sudden pain, something pops, or is it something you might notice a little bit
Well,
later?
it could be both. With acute sprain, strain type of injuries, you will likely feel something. And then sadly, we can develop disc herniations and bulges, and sometimes you will feel a little click or a pop. You might feel some acute quick shooting pain down into one of your legs. That's a little more serious. So just with the general sprain strain type of injury, use some ice, maybe an anti-inflammatory, take it easy. And then obviously if it's lasted a couple days, you need to get in and see someone to get it checked.
If you've tweaked something and want to get it checked out, call Dr. Riley and his team at Tulsa Spine and Rehab, 918-743-3737.